What's good, YouTube? Welcome back to MKE MANIACI, and today we got 10 biggest what ifs in WWE history, man. Now listen, as somebody that always keeps up with the dirt sheets and keeps up with the rumors and what's gonna happen, there's been a lot of plans that really fell through. In some cases, circumstances out of our control. As humans, RIP Eddie Guerrero. As we saw from the thumbnail, Eddie versus Shawn, WrestleMania 22. That would have been a banger of a match, but unfortunately, we lost Eddie Guerrero months leading up to WrestleMania 22. So we gonna check out 10 biggest what ifs, man. Let's get it.
The world of professional wrestling, where every match and every moment has the potential to create history. But what if things had played out differently? What if certain events had taken a different turn? In this video, we'll look at the 10 biggest what ifs in WWE history and imagine a world where the outcome was altered. From missed opportunities to shocking twists, get ready to be transported down the rabbit hole of alternate WWE universes. So sit back in your DeLorean, relax, and let's explore the possibilities of what could have been. Number 10, John Cena released. When John Cena first arrived to the WWE, the company, more specifically Vince McMahon, was not impressed. After months of struggling to get over with the audience, the boss wanted to release him because he didn't see a future for him. That's right, we were very close to living in a world where John Cena wasn't the face of the WWE or even in the company at all.
Could you imagine? I mean, like, there was, at this time, though, it was so many prospects. WWE was in a transitionary period. The Attitude Era had just ended. Vince was looking for that next big star. And honestly, John Cena, as when he came in the prototype gear, he was really bland. It was nothing like interesting about John Cena. And in fact, Cena even said the rap thing saved his career.
Everything would have been different. Without John Cena, I don't think they maintained those same ratings. The dude was such a massive draw. It would have been a huge loss for their roster. Those 16 championship reigns would not exist, which means WWE would have to find a new babyface. Batista or Randy Orton were most likely going to take that role, and because of that, Evolution would not have been the same either. And as for John Cena, he would probably go on to become a powerlifter and most likely a gym influencer right now with the advancement of technology.
I would not. I don't want to even think about what it would have been. When Cena won the WWE title for the first time, I was 10 years old, turning 11 that year. And man, when I tell you, even still to this day, I mark out when John Cena has his interest. I ain't gonna lie. Like Cena has been like one of the biggest parts of the Ruthless Aggression era. Like he defined that era. Like
Hollywood wouldn't have one of their biggest stars today. As you can see, a lot of things would have changed. We have to truly thank Stephanie McMahon for seeing the potential in John Cena and keeping him on the roster. Without that decision, we would have never gotten the Dr. Thugonomics or ultimately the John Cena we know and love today. Number 9, the Gobbledygook. In 1990, Vince McMahon and the WWE came up with an incredible idea of the Gobbledygook. The premise behind this character was to introduce an egg and eventually have the turkey hatch out of it at Survivor Series for Thanksgiving. Such a festive and fun plan. The original wrestler that was supposed to take this role was Mark Calloway. And for those unfamiliar with that name,
but I saw, and I don't know, but I think it was Bruce Pritchard, it was the Undertaker biography. They said they actually never had plans for the Undertaker to be the Gobbledygook. That was never, he said that pretty much said it was cap. But I mean, then again, I don't know. I mean, it could have been.
Name that is The Undertaker. Imagine a world where The Undertaker never makes his debut at Survivor Series and instead he's a turkey. That could have easily been the end of his WWE career. The Undertaker might have never been created. A universe where we don't have Taker in it is just disgusting to think about. The Phenom was a critical and crucial piece to WWE success over the last 30 years, and this would have sucked big time. Thankfully, we got The Undertaker instead, and I can sleep easy. Number 8, Cody stays. Cody Rhodes requested his release from WWE in the year of 2016 because he wasn't happy with his position in the company. Before he became the American Nightmare, he was Stardust and he wasn't really doing too much other than losing matches. Because of that, WWE didn't really need to keep him on the roster, so they released him and let him do his own thing in the independent circuit. After spending some time in that scene and expanding his network, he met and befriended the Elite, the group that went on to change the wrestling world by partnering with Tony Khan and creating All Elite Wrestling. This was a big game changer since they got a huge network deal with TNT, and for the first time in 20 years, it felt like WWE had some actual competition. All of this could have been avoided if WWE kept Cody Rhodes and pushed him in 2016. It makes you think about how different the landscape of professional wrestling would look today if that happened.
Now, my thing with Cody Rhodes, I feel like Cody being let go or, requesting his release was needed. Because honestly, if he would have stayed in the WWE, he probably would have been Stardust for a pretty long time. I don't think he would get the push that he's getting right now if he had stayed in the WWE. I think their biggest mistake was making Cody Rhodes Stardust. They were on the right track with him, refurbishing the Intercontinental Championship legacy. They were doing the right thing, and then, okay, the dashing thing, okay, and then Stardust. If he would have stayed in WWE, man, it would have hurt him a lot more than it would have benefited him. So I think, him leaving was necessary because it made him exactly who he is right now. It made him the man that's going to be main event in WrestleMania this year.
Number 7, Eddie's death. November 13th, 2005 is a tragic day in professional wrestling history. The business lost one of the best of all time, and the world lost a good man.
I remember that day like it was yesterday. I remember school that day. I was in 5th grade that year, and people at school were saying, did you know Eddie Guerrero died? And for some reason, it didn't process with me until Raw that night, and they did the tribute. I'm like, oh my God. Like, we just seen Eddie wrestle Mr. Kennedy like last week on SmackDown. And for some reason, I thought Mr. Kennedy killed Eddie Guerrero. Like, I don't know, man. It was so like unexpected, man.
Eddie Guerrero passed away, and when the news hit, everyone was devastated. Eddie was so loved that the news really broke our hearts. I like to picture an alternate timeline where he never passes away to see how his career would have played out. A world championship run and a WrestleMania match against Shawn Michaels were rumored to take place. Both of those things would have happened, and it would have been a lot of fun to see. I also think that WWE's reputation at the time would not have taken a hit from the media.
Yeah.
And I'd also like to think that if Eddie never passed away, it could have prevented the Chris Benoit tragedy. I'm not sure if that would happen, but after his friend did die, it deeply affected Chris Benoit to the point where his mental health never recovered. It only worsened. Speaking of the Benoit tragedy.
Yeah, the Benoit definitely, I feel like that was an extension of him losing Eddie. I do believe if Eddie never passed, the Shawn Michaels match at WrestleMania would have happened. Yes, Eddie Guerrero would have possibly won a Royal Rumble. Yes, Eddie Guerrero would have been a World Heavyweight Champion. He would have had a couple of more title runs. More importantly, I feel like in today's WWE, I could definitely see him retired. I think, you got to think about Eddie Guerrero was 38 years old at the time of his death. He won the WWE title, I believe, when he was 37, 36. So, today in 2023, I feel like he would be working with the next generation of talent, and that would have been an incredible mentor for the talent coming up, because Eddie Guerrero really possessed everything from charisma to in-ring abilities, man. Eddie Guerrero was the complete and total package, man.
Tragedy. Number 6, the Benoit tragedy. What if the Chris Benoit tragedy never happened in 2007? That is something that needed to be on this list because it's a moment that truly changed the WWE forever.
Yeah.
The Benoit tragedy is the worst thing to happen to the wrestling world in the 21st century. It's extremely sad to even think about, and I even get emotional thinking about Nancy and Daniel.
Facts.
They clearly did not deserve what happened to them. It's just such a horrible event and thing that happened. It also casted a large cloud over the WWE for a long time. I think some people still don't look at wrestling the same way because of that incident. Because of this tragedy, WWE made a lot of changes. They enforced their wellness policy and even turned the product TV PG to improve their image with everyone around the world. I don't think those things would have happened if Benoit never commits this unforgivable act. The WWE would be very different today if none of this happens.
And I think that is a true fact. I believe after the Eddie Guerrero tragedy is when they implicated the wellness policy. But this right here, you know, I remember the scrutiny. Vince on the Today Show. Vince on, I think he was on Larry King. Like, it was so many guys, like, you got to stick up for the company. But it was such a dark and grim thing, you know, what Chris Benoit did. But one can only imagine if Chris Benoit never did what he did. You know, if he was still here, he would definitely be in the Hall of Fame right now. He would have definitely won the ECW championship. I think ECW, the brand wouldn't have been in such a, I mean, it was kind of in a hole at that time, I'm not gonna lie. But I don't know, I think Chris Benoit, you know, he still had, I mean, he was 40. So, you know, he would have been retired by now. Also could have been in the same boat as Eddie, as training talent, man. But, you know, like, what he was going through was kind of like so far gone in a way, man. And it definitely, you know, still to this day, you know, they can't even mention this man's name on TV. You can't even induct him in the Hall of Fame because, you know, yes, he was an incredible wrestler, but what he did, you know, you can't, you know, forgive that. You know what I mean? So
Number 5, WCW wins.
Oh!
In the late 90s, the biggest feud in the wrestling world wasn't between any two wrestlers, it was between two promotions. WCW and WWF were in a heated war with each other. Monday Nitro and Monday Night Raw were going head to head. The war was intense and the fans were the winners at the end of the day because it gave us some of the best moments in wrestling history. The NWO were always up to some shenanigans each week. Stone Cold Steve Austin was whacking Vince McMahon in the head with a bedpan or spraying him with beer, and The Undertaker was crucifying people. The Monday Night War in the 90s was truly a wild time to be a wrestling fan. However, it came to an end when WCW's quality dropped and less people were watching. The company died and Vince McMahon eventually purchased it. A huge what if is asking how wrestling would look today if WCW had a competent leader and good ownership, ultimately winning the war in the end. We'll never know, but it's interesting to think about.
It's definitely interesting.
Number 4, Austin stays in WCW.
I'm gonna say this. Austin, Taker, Triple H, guys that used to be in WCW, they never would have flourished into what they were today.
Joining WWE, Stone Cold Steve Austin was in WCW for the beginning years of his career. He joined the company in 1991 and ended up being released by Eric Bischoff in 1995, who thought he wasn't marketable. Stone Cold then jumped to ECW where he developed his character and got some more attitude. After spending some time there for a bit, he went to WWE and became Stone Cold Steve Austin, becoming an important piece of WWE and Vince McMahon's team. What if WCW kept him though? Even if they didn't see value in him and kept him as nothing more than a jobber, it would have probably benefited them because Austin was the biggest star in WWE, and without Austin, I don't think WWE wins the war.
Facts.
And if he managed to become Stone Cold Steve Austin, we could have seen so many dream matches against the likes of Hulk Hogan, Flair, and Sting. Number 4, The Rock never leaves. WWE made a huge mistake in 2005. The Rock was spending more time in Hollywood during this time, which made Vince McMahon so unhappy, and he quietly released The Rock from WWE. I don't know about you, but I'd rather have a part-time Rock than no Rock. Anyways, one of the biggest what-ifs is The Rock never leaving WWE for Hollywood in the first place. This means that John Cena probably would take a back seat. WWE would have also probably had better ratings because The Rock was a huge star, and I'm sure the fans would have turned on The Rock in some time after being the top babyface. This is an interesting scenario because The Rock was really supposed to be the top guy for years to come, so aside from John Cena not being the face of the company, many others would have probably not seen the same success if he did stay. But it was probably a good thing he left though for his own sake, because the man would have never had this net worth if he stayed, so good for Rock.
Facts. I think The Rock, think about it, The Rock was only in WWE for 6 years. That's literally like 2017 to now. Think about it. He was only in WWE full time for 6 years. So The Rock technically, at the time he came in, he should have at least wrestled just as long as, you know, Shawn Michaels or Triple H full time.
Number 3, the curtain call. The curtain call is a very important moment in wrestling history. Before Scott Hall and Kevin Nash left WWE to join WCW, they had one last unforgettable moment in WWE. After an untelevised steel cage match in MSG, the Clique were in the ring and they embraced in front of the audience. It was one last goodbye. The only problem was that this was breaking kayfabe because you had baby faces and heels and they were hugging and they were showing that clearly they're not mad at each other, and that was a big no-no in the old days of professional wrestling. And so Vince McMahon was furious, and he couldn't punish Hall or Nash because they were leaving, and he couldn't do anything to Shawn Michaels since he was literally one of the top guys at the time. Therefore, Triple H received the punishment. The plans were for him to win King of the Ring, which would have been the beginning of his push, but that was taken away. Instead, Stone Cold won the King of the Ring, giving us the famous Austin 3:16 line. I think he would have never found the same success without that win, so I would say this was perfect timing for Austin, but it makes you wonder what would have happened to Austin, to Triple H, and the rest of the WWE if the curtain call never happened in the first place.
Never know.
Number 2, the Montreal Screwjob. In 1997, Vince McMahon informed Bret Hart to leave WWE to join WCW because he could not afford to pay him. This was even after Hart agreed to take a massive pay cut to maintain his loyalty towards Vince McMahon and the WWF. You see, Bret Hart was too damn good for Vince. Anyways, after agreeing to walk away, McMahon found himself in a dilemma. Bret Hart was the WWF champion and did not want to lose on the last night of his contract in his home country, and so Vince McMahon decided to screw him over, calling for the bell when he never tapped out. Bret Hart was so pissed, he spat in McMahon's face and even threw a punch in the back, giving him a black eye. This moment changed a lot for WWE. It created the evil Vince McMahon character that was critical for the success of the Attitude Era. Without that character, WWE
I don't think Vince would have ever revealed himself as the higher power. I don't think Vince would have ever been what he was if Bret didn't do that.
He does not win the ratings war. Shawn Michaels and the rest of DX wouldn't get a ton of heat and eventually return to their feud with The Undertaker, so I don't think Shawn Michaels hurts his back in that casket match because it probably would have never happened. And Bret Hart probably does not get injured from Goldberg. So the Montreal Screwjob never happening would have changed a lot of things during the most important time in WWE's existence. Number 1, Vince in jail. In 1993, Vince went to prison charged by the United States Department of Justice for illegal activity relating to steroids. The charges could have led to 11 years in prison and a $1.5 million fine, and cast doubt on his ability to lead the company moving forward. However, after an 18-day trial in 1994, he was acquitted by a jury in the federal district court. If Vince McMahon had been arrested and convicted, though, it could have had a significant impact on the WWF. The company was already facing criticism and scrutiny, and a high-profile arrest of its CEO could have resulted in even greater public criticism and a loss of business. I think that WWE would have closed if he got arrested, and with WCW closing down in the near future, I think wrestling would have died altogether, and I probably wouldn't be here making this video right now if Vince McMahon was arrested in 1994. Anyways, that is
actually a true fact. You know, the wrestling industry would definitely not be where it is today, man. At all. TNA would have never started. Nothing. It probably would have died when Vince went to prison. That's crazy. These are crazy things to think about, man. 10 biggest what ifs in WWE history. Link down below in the description to y'all to check out this video in its entirety with no interruptions. Y'all new to the channel, y'all rock with me, want more wrestling related content, hit that subscribe button for me. And until the next video, I'll see y'all then. Thank you for watching MKE Maniaci. I'm out.